Thank you for joining this live broadcast. We'll get started in just about 30 seconds. We're a little bit early. If you have any questions during the broadcast, you can type them in the chat box or leave a comment, and we'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible. Hello and welcome to the Night Watch. We will begin with covering the top global news from the last hour, including all the most recent breaking news updates from around the world. Then we'll drill down a little bit into some regional news, and we'll try to keep it quick and to the point with a little bit of discussion on some key topics. So let's browse the top headlines of the world for the last 60 minutes. News out from the Philippines: coronavirus infections top 12,000, and the deaths past the 800 mark, unfortunately. So that is just out in the last few minutes out of Manila. In a bulletin, the ministry reported 16 more coronavirus deaths, bringing the total to 806. It recorded 215 additional infections, increasing the total tally to 12,091. But 123 more patients have recovered, bringing total recoveries to 2,460. So that is where we're at right now as of today in the Philippines. What I do appreciate really in this news is the number of recoveries. A lot of the news, such as in America, seems to only report infections and deaths, but does not report on recovery. So it's great to see the recovery count coming out of the Philippines as well. Virus hit German economy, suffers the worst contraction since 2009. So the economy in Germany has certainly been beaten up severely by the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of breaking news updates coming in, but let's switch gears to some good news in Belgium. So Belgium will reopen beer sales as lockdown eases. So for all of the beer drinkers in Belgium, you've got some good news. That is going to be coming soon to you. Congratulations on that update. China has just announced that stable bilateral relations are in the best interests of both China and the United States. China's foreign ministry said on Friday that steady China-U.S. bilateral relations serve the interests of both people, responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's comments that he could cut ties with the world's second largest economy. So China is providing some reassurance that they believe it's in the interest of both countries to have stable bilateral relations. Unfortunate news out of Russia. Russia reports 10,598 new coronavirus cases in the past 24 hours versus 9,974 new cases on the previous day. Now, you may recall at one point it seemed as though the novel coronavirus in Russia was under a state of pretty effective control. And unfortunately, things turned for the worse, and now we're getting some surges in infections in Russia. So moving on a little bit, Australian Football League to restart June 11th, and 4 clubs are moving to the Gold Coast. So there are some developments there in the Football League out of Melbourne. The Australian Football League season will resume on June 11th, with players returning to training from Monday and 4 clubs moving to the Gold Coast due to tighter COVID-19 restrictions in their home states. The Australian rules Top Flight, the country's most popular winter sports league, was suspended in March after one round of the season when domestic travel curbs to contain the coronavirus outbreak made the competition untenable. News out from China saying that COVID-19 risk from imported cases are controllable, which is interesting news. The risk of a COVID-19 resurgence in China from so-called imported infections is controllable, an official of the National Health Commission, NHC, said on Friday. China reported 4 new coronavirus cases on the mainland on May 14th, all of them locally transmitted. China has banned most foreigners from entering its borders since late March as the pandemic spread. Lister also told reporters during a briefing that some COVID-19 vaccines are set to complete their second phase of clinical trials in July. So that's good that trials are ongoing. regarding potential vaccines. Confirms 793 more coronavirus cases, taking the city-state's tally of infections to 26,891. That just came out a little bit ago today. Okay, out of London, London transport operator secures $2 billion emergency government funding. So London's transport operator, which has seen passenger numbers collapse, obviously that's happened everywhere due to the coronavirus, said it had secured $2 billion in government funding, that's 1.6 billion pounds, to cover the shortfall in revenue for October. Transport for London, TfL, which runs the city's red double-decker buses and underground tube trains, among other services, said it had lost more than 90% of its revenue from fares and advertising on its network since lockdown. Measures imposed in March have restricted people's movements, with businesses shut and many people working from home. So in any case, there is some funding that obviously is coming at a very critical time. Another update, Abbott Laboratories has received a green light from the United Kingdom for antibody test, which is great news. The French finance minister will be holding another meeting with French auto executives this Friday as they're working on reviving that industry. And some news on rugby. World governing body set on Friday. Global travel bans, strict quarantine protocols, and player safety concerns meant that cross-border international rugby competition cannot be hosted in July, the body said in a statement. Most cross-border and domestic club rugby competitions have been suspended since March as countries move to halt spread of the disease. World champions South Africa were due to host Scotland and Georgia in July, while Wales and Ireland were scheduled to visit New Zealand and Australia, respectively, with England heading to Japan. So that's all on hold at this point. Okay. Let's check a few more updates here. And if you have any questions, remember to post them. Hong Kong just revised their full year headline CPI forecast for 2020 to 1.4%, down from 1.7. So definitely a decline in their forecast at this time. Okay, checking on some other news from around the world. One moment, please. Okay, so something good out of Thailand to share with you. Thailand to reopen department stores, shopping malls, food courts starting Sunday after virus closures. So that's just out as a news alert. More details to follow. But that's this Sunday, a few days from now, Thailand will reopen department stores, shopping malls, and food courts. I bet everyone in Thailand is very excited about that news. That's a big improvement. Okay, Thailand also reported 7 new coronavirus cases, all from overseas. No new deaths. We mentioned earlier on a broadcast that Vietnam reported 24 new coronavirus cases, all of them imported. So a lot of countries are really struggling with the imported cases, either citizens returning home or in some cases even travelers, official travelers. For the most part, tourism isn't happening in many countries around the world, but in any case, citizens are able to come home, and that's where there's a lot of resurgence. We mentioned earlier regarding Bangladesh, there was some news out of Dhaka. The novel coronavirus has been detected in one of the southern Bangladesh camps that are home to more than 1 million Rohingya refugees, officials said on Thursday. 1 million, huge number, as humanitarian groups warned the infection could devastate the crowded settlement. And if you've seen any images, if not, you can search online. Very, very crowded. A refugee and another person have tested positive for COVID-19. A senior Bangladeshi official and a UN spokeswoman said it was the first confirmed case in camps more densely populated than most crowded cities on Earth. So that's quite a challenge. And among the patients, one was from the host population, meaning a local resident outside the camps, and the other apparently was from within the camp. Coronavirus infections have been gathering pace in recent days in Bangladesh, which has reported 18,863 cases and 283 deaths of COVID-19. Aid workers have warned of a potential humanitarian disaster if there is a significant outbreak in the refugee camps. So there's a lot of challenge there. There are only an estimated 2,000 ventilators in all of Bangladesh, serving a population of 160 million people. In the refugee camps, home to nearly 1 million people, there are no intensive care beds at the moment. Now that the virus has entered the world's largest refugee settlement, we're looking at the very real prospect that thousands of people may die from COVID-19. This pandemic could set Bangladesh back by decades, according to a spokesperson. U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, told Washington reporters by phone, "I've been to the refugee camp. It is so incredibly crowded that the COVID virus will spread through there very rapidly, unfortunately. They have to have access to adequate health care, so they're really struggling." Here, people are living 40,000 to 70,000 people per square kilometer. That's at least 1.6 times the population density on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship, where the disease spread 4 times as fast than in Wuhan at the peak of the outbreak, he said. So a lot of concern, obviously, in Bangladesh.